what I found out was there's actually, smart ways to know exactly what you're going to make at the end of the job, and you don't have to guess.
Hello out there, YouTubers and other media consumers. We're glad to have you here with the ProfitDig Construction Show. I'm here with Jeff Spencer. He swapped out with Chris Work. If you saw part one, Jerry Work behind the camera, and Chris Work behind the camera as well, and special guest, Jeremy Perkins.
Yep.
So, Jeremy, we were knee-deep into an interesting story in our first part. We kind of cut you off. We wanted to split it up in a couple different videos. But this story that you were talking about, Jeremy's actually written a book that you can buy this on Amazon if you want. It's an Amazon bestseller. That kind of goes into more detail about this story. And it covers the 12 steps of business recovery, similar to, I guess, 12 steps to, was it alcohol recovery? Is it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So not something I'm familiar with, but based on the conversation we were having, like, did you go through an alcohol rehabilitation program as well?
Yep. Yeah, I did. As I was saying, leading up to 2014, when everything was crashing down, business was crashing, home life was crashing, my health, mental health was crashing, abusing drugs to alcohol and things like that. I ended up quitting everything cold turkey and thought, I'll just handle this myself. Went into a whirlwind mentally. Was actually sober for 60 days before I went to rehab, which was
really
unusual from what I hear. And so that's what sparked me to write this book, because when I went through the rehab process, they said, you seem like you're addicted to business, like you're getting the same high from, selling a job that you would from, doing a drug or whatever it may be, because there's no rhyme or reason why you're doing things. It's like a dopamine hit every time you're selling a job, whether it makes sense or not. You're not thinking about your consequences to your actions. You just go. And so that always kind of stuck with me, especially once I got out and I started thinking more about, how to do this the proper way, how I was going to rebuild. And matter of fact, when I was in rehab, I was like, I'm never doing construction again. You got to be freaking insane to do this shit.
Look, that's where you got.
But that's all I do. Like, that's all I've ever done.
So what changed? Like, obviously that changed.
Yeah.
Why did you come to the reasoning that actually, you know what, maybe it is the right thing to do? Or is that the conclusion that you came to?
Yeah, the conclusion I came to is that's all I know. I mean, I had to get a job coming out with nothing, and nobody would really hire me doing anything else because I didn't have much experience doing anything else. Mm-hmm. So I just fell back into construction. And, I just have an entrepreneurial mind, so it's hard for me to work for other people when I know, that I can produce or create value myself, Mm-hmm. And so I got back into it, got my life straightened up. That was my main focus. Is get my life back straightened up.
Timeline-wise, where are we at now?
We're in 2015.
So not far after. A year.
I spent a year, working on myself, getting my mind back right, and then jumped back into the game, and immediately out of the gate, started doing business again.
Uh-huh.
Was doing it a lot more calculated. Was reading a whole lot up on, proper ways to do things, reaching out to mentors. I joined a group that I'm still involved with, Real Estate Investors of Nashville. Found a mentor, found a guy who's now a hard money lender, who was a builder, who did similar things that I've done through his career, but was super analytical and knew how to put deals together in a way that made sense that I'd never seen before. Mm-hmm. I just thought, I would just throw shit against the wall and see what stuck and try to make a profit, where what I found out was there's actually, smart ways to know exactly what you're going to make at the end of the job. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to guess. And in the beginning whether to say no to somebody or yes to somebody, and not just be a yes man and all those things. And so I kind of hung on to this guy and through the process that I went through in rehab, where it is all about not isolating and saying what's on your mind, if something's bothering you, or getting help or asking for advice and all those things, I always took it in my mind that it always correlated to business directly because, you know, that's what most things end up meaning to me anyway. I just relate it to business. It's just how my mind works. And so, anyway, I was able to grow that pretty quick, mended the relationship with my wife. We ended up getting back together and starting, my construction business was doing really good. And then we started an investment company, and then which brought us into development. We started, I was back building houses and flipping houses. Her and I started flipping houses together. You know, it really helped having an analytical, more of an engineered mind, where I had a visionary, I'm more of a visionary, my wife's more of an engineer. So the combination of us together was great because she could take my ideas and put them on paper and make the data make sense to support, you know, what's going on. And we were able to do a lot of things with that very quickly as far as flipping houses and building houses. And then developing a self-storage facility was the first big project that we did out in Burns called Synergy Storage. And all that led up into, you know, starting to develop and build spec homes for ourselves. Because we were, you know, I was building a lot of houses for other people and investors, but it was more lucrative to do it for ourselves. And that's what we've been doing ever since, you know, just developing highest and best use of property, buying and holding rental homes, using the burn method, you know, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and keep moving, learning how to do these big projects with no money in it. For example, the storage facility was, you know, a multi-million-dollar, $2 million project, but we had no money in it from the beginning. We were able to create value out of the rezoning process, which I could go on and on about the details of that, but I'm gonna try to keep it short for his 18 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we started going to a lot of seminars. We started joining masterminds. You know, there's a time when we were spending upwards of $100,000 a year just on education. And a lot of people would think that's crazy, but when you see the results of getting around people who's already been there, done that, and it allows you to skip a lot of mistakes that you would have to make organically, you realize, I'll pay you anything. Like, that doesn't mean anything. I was a huge skeptic against that, of like, we could figure this out ourselves. But now I'm a huge proponent of paying for that education. You know, even like these podcasts right here. I'll watch these podcasts like this. A lot of people can watch this for free. Like, that's a super huge value to be able to learn some of these things that you guys are talking about, and they don't have to pay for it. Like, I'll gladly pay for that kind of information, especially now knowing what I know, because it's priceless. Like, information and the knowledge is really what's led us to success.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, like this day and age, I mean, information is so readily available, like you just said. And like, I think you mentioned before, you were watching a YouTube video back in 2010. It's not what it was.
Right.
It's not what it is now, right? Like, just the amount of information and knowledge that's out there, and the people willing to share just continues to grow.
We know, even in the past, talking to some of these new construction companies that, like, we're starting from the ground up, some of them may have been, you know, working for other construction companies, decided to go out on their own. And some of those would come to me and ask me, you know, for help, you know, getting started and stuff, but it's like, they wanted to hit the ground running. You know, they didn't see the importance of the knowledge of, you know, learning what it actually took. You know, several people, and we talked about this in our book, we talked about it in our videos. I would ask someone, you know, like, well, you got just for say a D6 dozer. What does it cost you to run this dozer, you know, for an hour? Like, well, I charge. I said, well, I didn't ask you what you charge. What does it cost you to run it?
Yeah.
And, you know, and they could not give me an answer. They did not know. But
You know, a lot of times they don't want to hear the true answer.
Right.
And that's what I actually talked about that in my book too. And he flipped right to the page and thought it was funny that I was calling somebody an asshole. But that's what I call it, asking.
Yeah.
Like, you're asking me a question, expecting a certain answer. And when you get the real answer, that's not the easy button.
Right.
You shy away. But,
Right.
you know, that's how it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
I thought I already knew everything. I thought I invented a new way to do things when in reality, if you just mimic things that have worked for the longest time for people who's already been doing it,
Right.
that is the easy button.
Yeah, learn from their mistakes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no better class you could take, to learn someone else's mistakes. But, same thing with the people I was talking about, they would look at well, if I have to go up on my price, I won't lose work. That's the way they viewed it, I'm going to put myself in a hole if I listen to what this guy's telling me. When I was telling them they were too cheap on their prices. But, and I try to explain to them, the bottom line is 5% profit margin versus a 35% profit margin. It's like that 5% profit margin is just going to keep the lights on and keep your wheels turning. It's not going to help you grow or make any or further your business in any way.
Yep. Absolutely.
But they, majority of them are just scared they're going to lose work if they start raising prices.
Yeah, that's who I was in the last episode. I was saying yes to which you didn't hear it, but I was just saying yes to everything that came across my plate because I thought, well, as long as I'm generating revenue, I'll be okay. And I wasn't thinking about breaking it down into what's the actual cost of doing business, what's my overhead, where does my profit margins, what do these things look like? What do I say yes to? What do I say no to? Somebody asked a question the other day on Facebook of what's the best financial advice you've ever gotten? And my answer was learning how to say no. I've made way more money saying no than I ever had saying yes.
Right.
Because of the opportunity cost. And people don't know how to calculate opportunity cost either. And that's something that I learned how to do. And if I take a job that's 5% profit, I got to lose a job that's 35% profit.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to do 7 jobs to equal this point?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm worried about missing a day of work?
Right.
Okay, I'd rather do the 35% profit job and go do whatever I want to do with my time, because the real value is time freedom. And
Yes.
being able to do what I want and feeling comfortable and knowing that, I'm not getting served tomorrow by the sheriff for a lawsuit because I wasn't able to do what I said I could do because I had no idea what the hell I was doing anyway.
Right. Well, and you do your risk management on each project, and you know what it's going to cost you up front. Like you said earlier, knowing what this project is going to cost you and what the potential is to come out of it. And it's not that hard to sit down. I was the same way when I was younger. It took me losing my business to figure out, hey, I need to do a better job of calculating, what we're actually making, and that's when I got in big to wanting to track job costs.
Yep.
Where I got some kind of relevance to go back to, on similar projects. So, well, I lost my ass on this last job, similar to this. So I really need to pay attention, and figure out what's going to cost me to put this in to start with.
Yeah. They really should call this a practice. And I say it all the time, just like a doctor or a lawyer or anybody else, because we're not dealing with the same scenario over and over like in manufacturing is.
Right.
It's a different scenario every time we put our boots on the ground or our equipment hits the yard, and it's a practice. And like you said, we're practicing what we're doing, and then we're recording the data, and then we're better every time based on the data, not how we feel or not how things look. Like obviously we want to produce a good product and all those things too, but it's really just data driven, and it'll always guide us in the right direction if we let it. It's not that we're going to be perfect, but
Yeah, one of the big challenges that we, Jeff Spencer talks about this a lot is just tracking those costs, tracking that data. And it doesn't have to be cost. Like any data can be good data if you have an intention for it. What can you learn from it?
Yep.
Right. Don't just collect data just for the sake of doing it, but have an intention. Collect that data. Use some tool, some software. By the way, ProfitDig, it's good for this.
Yeah.
The shameless plug. But it doesn't have to be ProfitDig, but just some tool for you to be able to track those expenses and be willing to set aside some time to do the analysis, whether it's you directly or even if you hire someone to do that analysis. Because if you just, like you said, if you're just taking every job that comes your way, you are missing out on the opportunities that if I'm spending all my guys are engaged on this project, I can't do this project. So be smart about the projects you take.
Yep. Yep. And people will respect you when you say no to them. People don't want to say no because they think, oh, this person's not going to respect me, or this person is going to be pissed because I'm not going to do it. Well, I found out that people will respect you. It's like, look, I'm not the right. I just turned a $700,000 job down 2 days ago. I spent a lot of time. I spent a couple months in pre-construction on this project to find out that it wasn't the right fit for me. you know, which potentially could have saved me potentially would save me hundreds of thousands of dollars at the end of the day. But I just wasn't the right fit. You know, I'm a luxury builder. We build, you know, a higher end product, and that's not what this person was wanting. They couldn't understand why things were costing what they cost. And, you know, I'm not going to subject my product and my reputation to someone else's idea of what they think something should cost. Well, there's people that can do it, and that are happy to do it. You know, and it's a better suit for them. But the people aren't bad. They're like, hey, I appreciate you, you know, not stringing me along. I'd rather you tell me that than get halfway through the project and me have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars that I didn't want to spend.
Right.
You know, like a lot of contractors will do with, you know, change orders and extras. And that would have hurt my reputation really bad or cause a lawsuit, you know. So I'm looking at the liability in some of these things too.
So I want to wrap this up, but really, you know, thanks for sharing that story. I'm glad it worked out, right? Like, conversation would be a lot different. But so you mentioned like maybe some business tips here, you know, like being able to say no. But really, I want to focus, like, and wrap this up. Like, when you hit your low point, what was it that gave you, I don't know, the fortitude or at least the direction to say, like, you know what is this moment that you decided to turn it around? Because you could have continued to spiral.
Yeah, I could have definitely continued to spiral and would have died. I mean, I would have died or been in jail, one of the two. But it's really, honestly, what really turned me around was thinking of my legacy and thinking, you know, I don't want my kids to grow up and think their dad's a piece of shit.
Deadbeat dad.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I'm bumming around to, you know, get out to TVA for an outage or whatever. And I'm thinking, you know, I could kill myself, but then what am I going to do? Like, what are my kids going to do? Or how are they going to act? Like, it was pretty deep in that moment. And I thought, well, shit, man, when I really think about it, what does any of this shit matter? Like, why am I depressed? It doesn't matter. I did this almost what felt like instantly. I can do it again. Like, I already have the information. They can take all my trucks away. Mm-hmm. They can take my family away. They can take my money away, my offices, all these things, all these material things, but nobody's took my knowledge away. Like, I know how to get work. I know how to turn a project. All I got to do is dial it in and I'll be okay. I'm just missing a little bit of operational knowledge, you know? And so I was like, I don't know. I just turned the light on. I was like, all right, first I got to clear myself out mentally and I'll be ready to go.
Man, that's awesome. So, man, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the ProfitDig Construction Show. You guys have a good one.
See you guys.